Hello everybody, my name is Dratnus, and in today's video we have three topics that we'll be getting covered. You could use little timestamps down at the bottom if you want the chapters to go and see the different ones, but the first one is a small set of patch notes that was included that gives some big nerfs to a lot of popular embellishments that existed and were used a lot in previous patches. So let's just quickly read through what's happening here. First of all, Great Vault, the Mythic Dungeons row has been renamed to Dungeons. The reason for that, of course, is because Heroic, M0, and Time Walking Dungeon runs now unlock rewards in that row too. And of course, there'll be lower item levels. One nice thing that they've clarified here is Time Walking counts as Heroic, and these rewards draw from the same rewards pool as M+, which is very nice. There was, I would say, not very well-founded concerns because it was pretty unlikely that it would work this way, but if the time-walking Great Vault drew from the time-walking dungeon reward pool, especially if it did it at a higher eye level, that could be potentially weird and create a weird incentive to do 8 time-walking dungeons and no M+ dungeons so that you could fill a vault with time-walking if there was something good that you were trying to get in a higher track or something. But either way, this is a nice little thing happening. And I think that expanding the Great Vault to include not just M+, but M0, Heroic, and Time Walking is great. All right, here is that big embellishment set of nerfs, though. Frostfire Belt, Fang Adornments, Slimy Expulsion Boots, Toxic Thorn Foot Wraps, Acidic Hailstone Treads, Magazine of Healing Darts, Playful Spirits Fur set, the Shadowflame Tempered Armor Patch, and the Spore Colony Shoulder Guards are all getting 35% nerfs to their damage and healing. This is pretty big. A lot of these embellishments were very good for a lot of different builds. The leather boots plus patch combo was often bis for a lot of different leather wearers. The mail one, a little bit less good, a little bit less ubiquitous, but also good. The healing darts, debatable for different healers. Frostfire Belt was very good for plate wearers. And of course, the Shadowflame Tempered Armor Patch, which is a really solid catch-all that a lot of people used last patch. Nerfing these by 35% is probably enough to make you start considering other options. This is a relative buff to the new embellishments that are coming out next patch, which maybe the goal here is just to get us to be wearing mostly the new embellishments. It's also, of course, a relative buff to any of the things that aren't listed here, stuff like Azure Weave, for instance. For cloth wearers is maybe getting a bit of a relative bump due to the Shadow Tempered Armor Patch getting a little bit weaker, although Azure Weave has problems with, competing with a set bonus slot, and then also not being able to craft it until the second or third week and not getting any value out of your embellishments until then, which hurts it during early progression. But this is definitely a big change coming in here, and also notably a relative buff to Spore Cloak, which Spore Cloak has been adjusted already to have a smaller shield that it gives you, but it's also going to give you versatility next patch when above 70% health, which actually, in a lot of cases, might make it better than it already was. Certainly, it's gonna be arguable, and that's something to look out for sure. I think the Year of the Spore Cloak. I mean, I think that the relative buff to Spore Cloak from nerfing all of these alternatives is definitely a thing to think about. Amos of the Blue is getting a 30% nerf instead of a 35% nerf. The self-damage has been increased on the Shadowflame Tempered Armor Patch as well, so not only is it doing less damage to the enemy, it's going to be doing more damage to you. And then they've also buffed the Dreamwalker's Healing Potion and the Potion of Withering Dreams. I'm actually not sure what the Dreamwalker's Healing one was. The Withering Dreams, though, I think was like a big upfront heal that then gave you a dot. Let's deliver a quick Google search to this thing. Right-click, search Google. There it is. Okay, this is a smaller heal up front and then a heal over time. So two new healing potions are having their health buffed, the healing buffed to make them more competitive with just a default healing potion. A bunch of PvP changes. We don't cover those on this channel, but link in the description if you want to go check them out. And a nice little UI change here, which is that in the auction house, items with long names will always have their crafted quality icon shown instead of being cut off. All right, we have 2 other topics to get to, but first, a word from this video's sponsor, which is u.gg/wow. This is a website where you can go, and in addition to some cool data-generated tier lists, you can also find information, which, especially in this, new exciting embellishment world, you might want to know stuff like what embellishments are people playing for my class in a certain situation, or early in the patch, or if you're making a new character, all those sorts of things. So you can go to this, say, for instance, for Brewmaster, slam on the gear page, and you could see down here what embellishment items people are using in different keys. So the slimy expulsion boots, and then of course a lot of cases is going to be the armor patch along with it, and all the other stuff pretty unpopular. And you can see this for Raid, for Mythic Plus, for certain bosses, all that. You can also see what people are wearing in the different slots. Like, oh yeah, most people are putting tier in all their slots except for the chest piece. The spoiler alert, the chest piece has haste. We don't like that stat. And most people are instead slamming a life-bound chest piece instead to choose their own stats at this point. So useful resource for the new patch and for any patch as well, figuring out what sort of things people are actually using in the real world as the content comes out at all these different difficulties. Awesome site. Thank you so much to them for sponsoring this video. Let's move on to our next topic, which is the Fyr'alath Legendary. Everything up to this point regarding the Legendary has been encrypted, and people have asked me this all the time when I've been streaming PTR testing. It's like, hey, is there anything about the Legendary? It wasn't in the Dungeon Journal, nothing like that. But it seems the first piece of data mined information may hint at one of the quest steps. So it's likely that this was an oopsie, that this something shouldn't have been encrypted, or should have been encrypted, but wasn't. Blizzard's done a good job with encrypting anything relating to the upcoming Legendary. However, it seems one thing might have slipped through, highlighting a portion of the questline needed to acquire Fyr'alath. These items showed up on the PTR today. Attuned Sophic Vellum, which is Sophic and Vellum are enchanting words. Details incantations that can guide Shadowflame away from the wielder. Crafted in tandem with Master Enchantress Shalisar. Attuned Rune of Shadow Binding, which is a powerful rune that strengthens this damage, crafted in tandem with a Master Scribe, so this is presumably an inscription thing. And then Attuned Glowspore Grip, which is a symbiotic Glowspore Grip ready for attunement with Fyr'alath. In a vacuum, these would be pretty innocuous. However, all three of them are named similarly and seem to reference three professions, and one of them mentions attuning with Fyr'alath directly. Apart from the first one having spelling errors, the second not being binds on pickup, and all of them being epic, it's clear these are a work in progress still, but they're very likely related to the Legendary questline. So, if this is true, this means the professions needed for Fyr'alath will be at least leatherworking, enchanting, and inscription. And also it means that Fyr'alath will probably have a similar crafting process to the Evoker Legendary, for people familiar with that, because this is a very similar... The Evoker Legendary was basically the same. There's three things you craft with different crafters using a bunch of different mats from, the outdoor world and some cringe fiery souls and stuff, and then also stuff from the raid and stuff from Fyr'alath Assaults. So likely to be a similar process if these end up actually being related to the Legendary, which of course, even if they were being designed that way, it's possible they would still abandon that at some point and change how it would work. Notably, again, these are epic instead of legendary, which the claw ones were legendary, so that's maybe a little bit of evidence against. But my guess is that like 80 to 90% confidence these will end up being parts of the Fyr'alath Legendary crafting process. And these items will likely need to be crafted using a lot of expensive materials, similar to the Evoker Legendary, which are still pricey. Evoker Legendary, a couple 100,000 gold will cost you. And the Attuned Glowspore Grip notably does have glow spores in the name, so glow spores may be part of the crafting cost, which that might actually really spike the price of these, because nobody's going to be in the Fyr'alath Caverns farming glow spores next patch. Everybody's going to be in the Emerald Dream, so the supply of these isn't going to be going up by much, so that might be a source of money next patch, perhaps. And one final thing about the effect is that the flavor text mentions a rune that strengthens as its damage. Could this be related to Fyr'alath's special effect? Could it be something that scales with player % health, or something that triggers off of you being attacked? It would be weird, because one tank spec can use this, Blood Decay, but other than that, it's DPS specs, right? Arms Warrior, Fury Warrior, Ret Paladin. So, interesting speculation. My guess would be that probably won't be how it will work, but could be interesting. Dude, imagine if the Legendary got more powerful as its durability went down. You had to be careful to not repair it too often. That would be very stupid, but funny. All right, final topic for the video today is private auras. So there are 2 private auras in Amirdrassil. For those who don't follow the whole private auras discussion, I had a lot of videos about this, about mostly Echo of Neltharion. I'll put a link in the top right to a little card you can go and click on if you want to watch some of my videos about that. My basic theory was private auras let them make mechanics that weak auras and DBM and bigwigs can't tell if you have that mechanic or not. And it was used in a mechanic that was very bad in Aberrus, which was the Volcanic Heart mechanic on Echo of Neltharion. It was also used on Rending Charge, which was a mechanic that wasn't very bad or anything, that was on Forgotten Experiments. Now, there are two mechanics that are private auras in Amirdrassil. One of them is Polymorph Bomb, which is on Council of Dreams. It's when people become these ducks and need to go and run over flowers to absorb them, and then to be able to unduck themselves, and at some points to be able to turn the bear into a duck. And it's a mechanic that has a little bit of juggling needed with it, because you do need to land the duck on the bear at a certain time, which might mean that you need to juggle the duck and have it bouncing between a couple players in your raid at different times. So there's a little bit of gameplay to it. My early take is it probably doesn't matter that this is a private aura. I don't think this is a mechanic that would be helped or solved that much by weak auras anyways. So probably pretty low impact that it's a private aura. I don't think there's much upside to it being a private aura either. I don't think it's a mechanic that would have been solved in some unfun way with a weak aura solution, but at least low downside. The other one is Seeking Inferno, which is the mythic-only mechanic of Smolderon, which is the 7th boss. Here's a little bit of what that mechanic looks like. These portals spawn, and these orbs come out of them. The orbs fixate a player and chase after that person. If the orb connects with that player, it explodes and deals a moderate amount, like 200k raid-wide fire damage, but if two of them connect within 4 seconds, it wipes the raid. So you need to soak these 3 in a staggered fashion. Now, this is also a private aura. You do have 30 seconds to deal with each set of these, so that is reasonably high amount of flexibility, although in a lot of the spawns, it felt like you did want to get them done as soon as possible, so that you could then get to the next, like you could get them done before the next big damage started happening, because that would let you have time to heal it up. So this mechanic going private aura, I also think is going to be a lot less bad than Volcanic Heart. I don't necessarily think it's going to be good. So in an ideal world, I think why they want to make this a private aura is because they want us to solve this by having the 3 players that get targeted notice that they've been targeted, and then communicate which order they're gonna clear in, right? Something like, I'm gonna soak now, or okay, you go, right? That kind of conversation between the 3 people that are targeted, I believe, is the goal of making it a private aura, and would be the more fun version of this mechanic. And the fear is that if you make it not a private aura, we are just gonna have a weak aura that tells people soak first, soak second, soak third. The problem is, with the way private auras work, we can still basically do that. What's going to happen is we will create a list similar to the Volcanic Heart list that will have all 18 non-tank players listed, and it will show if they have this if they're targeted by this next to them, and then we will simply soak the first and then the second and then the third. I'm pretty confident that that's going to be how this mechanic gets solved by the highest end progression teams. It's definitely possible to YOLO it, and the important thing is, like, executing this is going to be a lot less annoying however you do it than Volcanic Heart. So this mechanic is going to be less bad than Volcanic Heart, but I don't think that Private Aura is going to make it better or is going to lead to high-end groups YOLOing it, which is, I think, the desired goal here, because it is still just going to be better, I think, and the thing is, you don't even need all 20 people in the raid to have a list like that. You literally just have to have one person have that list and then call out, you go first, you go second, you go third. So unlike Volcanic Heart, you don't need a bunch of people to look at their auras. I don't think this will use a macro either like Volcanic Heart did. That seems like too much squeeze for not enough juice, but I do think that people will solve this systematically rather than reactively. I'm not sure what the solution is here for Blizzard, because I personally would rather well, I'm a tank, so I didn't get this mechanic during testing, nor will I ever get this mechanic during the actual boss mechanic, but were I to be playing DPS for this mechanic, I would prefer to YOLO it than to solve it with a weak aura, but I would definitely prefer to have a weak aura solve it than to have to, like, finagle together some janky list weak aura and then solve it with that instead. And then it's like, still, I don't get the enjoyment of, a nice, fun, reactive mechanic, but also I don't get the benefit of having it done nice and, quickly. So I think private auras are in a bit of a weird place here, and I'm not sure what the solution is for Blizzard. If possible, if they can find a way to break stuff like that list, That I think would maybe be the best thing. And then, of course, never design a mechanic like Volcanic Heart again. That was just like, that mechanic was unfun, and it was worse because of private auraing it, but it was just never going to be fun. And this mechanic, at least, is inherently, I think, a pretty good mechanic. I have a lot of problems with Smolderon's color scheme, but the mechanics of it are really fun. And I think that this mythic mechanic is a good mechanic. I don't think it's made much worse by the private aura's nature of it, but I do think it's not made any better. And I do think that the way that private auras are set up, anytime you make a good mechanic for private auras, you will necessarily have to build in enough time for people to react to it naturally. And if there's enough time for us to react to it naturally, there's enough time for us to either press a macro or read a list. So I think they should try and either break those functionalities, design mechanics in a way where those don't even really work, which this doesn't. This doesn't accomplish that goal. Or just abandon the idea of the private auras and find other... Then they have found other good ways to make mechanics that you have to think on your feet and you can't solve with a weak aura. But yeah, that's my take on this particular incarnation of private auras. I love reactively solving mechanics, but of course, in any situation where it's going to cost us more pulls to do that versus doing it with some sort of systematic solution, we're always going to choose the systematic solution. So I applaud Blizzard's efforts to make ways to change that paradigm, but I contest that private auras are the right way to do it. If you're interested, there's some good discussion. I tweeted about this, some good replies from Kana and stuff, discussion around this as well, where you can potentially join the discussion there, or of course in the comments of this video. Hope you've enjoyed this video. Hope you enjoyed these 3 different topics. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.